Not all pre-built gaming PCs are created equal, especially if one's a bird. I've talked about Falcon Northwest, the creators of this Tiki small form factor PC, a decent amount on this channel. And while they're usually paying me to hype them up, I wanted to go a little rogue today and do a full-on, honest review of this thick little birdie so you can actually get the hard, uncensored facts about this thing. But this video does have an actual sponsor, and that is Silverstone.
Do you have a ton of super valuable files that you just don't know what to do with? Well, lucky for you, today's sponsor Silverstone has a ton of options for different ways to store your terabytes of old school RuneScape runecrafting gameplay footage. If you've got an M.2 NVMe that you really need to access the files on, but no M.2 connections available on your machine, look no further than the MUA01. This nifty little enclosure will take your M.2 NVMe and basically turn it into a U.2 SSD. This rugged little guy's made out of an aluminum alloy, so your data is safe from any unwanted physical attacks. Oh, and if your motherboard supports hot swapping, the MUA01 does as well. Now, let's say you've got a similar but kind of opposite problem. All your important junk is loaded onto roughly 4 U.2 SFF 8639 drives, but you only have one 5¼ drive bay open. The FS204 US is literally the exact solution you need. This high-grade steel adapter cage features two 40mm fans and has space to accommodate 2.5-inch drives up to 15mm in thickness. Each drive gets its own individual metal key lock extra security as well. So no matter what your storage looks like, Silverstone offers ways to make it work in your machine. You can check out both the MUA01 and the FS204 US today via the link in the description below. Huge thanks to Silverstone for sponsoring.
So upfront disclosure, we do have a financial relationship with Falcon Northwest, but I passed this video off to one of our newest team members who's both a benchmarker as well as a scriptwriter, and I did not give him any editorial comments on this. Instead, I wanted him to present his true opinions on this fact separate from the business side. So me as the business owner, while I'm probably going to provide commentary here in this video, a lot of this is the thoughts of one of our latest team members. So, fair warning, this isn't your standard pre-built, and the price tag reflects that. The cheapest configuration is a whopping $4,369. Now, you do get some okay specs for that. A Ryzen 9600X, 32 gigs of RAM, a 2TB Gen 4 SSD, and a 5070. But even with this taken into consideration, it's still considerably more expensive than most pre-builts. The closest we could find was the exotic GS1 Ridge PC, and with those same specs, it's only $2,889, a $1,480 or 44% difference. That being said, the exotic is less focused on saving space. It uses the fractal design Ridge, ending up being 2.5 inches wider and about 3.5 inches taller and deeper than the Tiki. Also, the 5070 is the highest end GPU they offer in the exotic, whereas the Tiki offers the 5090 and higher. Now, I know what you're thinking. What's higher end than a 5090? And that's because you're thinking with your gamer brain. Falcon Northwest doesn't cater solely to our genre of turbo nerd. They work with content creators and businesses too. So whether you just want the best of the best or you're a professional who needs the extra power and VRAM for a mere $10,000 upcharge over the 5070, they'll stuff the RTX Pro 6000 in this tiny case for you. It's 96 gigs of RAM, faster at gaming than the 5090, but yeah, you're paying for it for sure. But there's a lot of other parts to customize as well. They offer 5 CPUs in total, a mix from AMD and Intel, the 9600X, 9700X, 9800X 3D, Ultra 7265, and Ultra 9285. The CPU selection is a little smaller just due to TDP constraints that are going on with the CPU. So with AMD, you can get up to a 9800X 3D, but with Intel, you have to go for the non-overclocking versions of those chips. For RAM, you can get 32 or 64 gigabytes at 6,000 mega transfers or 96 gigabytes at 6,400 mega transfers. There are 5 NVMe SSDs to choose from, a 2TB and 4TB with both Gen 4 and Gen 5 options from Kingston, or a 2TB Crucial T705 Gen 5 drive. You could also get a 2.5-inch drive, but as someone who refuses to acknowledge SATA storage, you'll have to look into that yourself. Falcon Northwest does their best to be a one-stop shop, and by offering custom UV prints on all their cases, different mouse, keyboard, headset, and monitor options, along with single options for a speaker, an external optical drive, a DAC, or even a surge protector, I say they succeed at being that one-stop shop. They also include a 3-year parts and labor warranty and 1 year of overnight service with all their PCs to make sure you have as little downtime as possible. Now, we have never had to use Falcon Northwest service because we have never had an issue with any of the review samples or promotional builds that they've done for us, whether that's been for the ads or them sponsoring our charity streams. But based on all of the reviews that I've seen across Reddit or various other places on the internet, they legitimately back up their PCs in a way that is hard to find from other pre-built manufacturers. Now, part of that is because they're very proactive in reaching out to the gaming community to make sure that things that are going wrong with computers in general, not just their PCs, are being addressed. Whether that's the power cable issues with the 5090s, they tested a bunch of different power supplies on a bunch of different setups in order to see if they were having any melting issues. Additionally, when it was the Intel 13th and 14th gen instability, they were sending emails out to the customers that had those to tell them how to fix their BIOS in order to make sure that they didn't experience that instability. And they worked very hard to make sure that their customers were taken care of when it wasn't even them who were creating the issues. Now, the Tiki case, which is what is the subject of the review, is very much what I believe the kids would call a sleeper build. Nothing too crazy or intimidating on the outside, the logo on the front being the only source of RGB, and it's just a nice sleek look packed with fans that hasn't had any major changes since its first iteration over a decade ago. But the attention to detail and engineering to fit all off-the-shelf parts, and more importantly, keep everything running cool, is pretty bonkers. The whole idea behind the Tiki was to be the smallest reasonable chassis that could fit the most powerful parts. And while that started in 2012 with an i7 3770K and a GTX 680 for a combined TDP of only 272 watts, thanks to constant effort and tweaking to make it the best case it can be, it continues to be able to handle any hardware you can throw at it. For example, the one we tested, the one Falcon Northwest sent for this review, has a 9800X3D and a 5080 for a total TDP of 480 watts. And under gaming loads, we only reached 85 degrees Celsius on the CPU and 65 degrees Celsius on the GPU respectively, and it all stays reasonably quiet too. The amount of optimization this build has is amazing. It's hard to imagine a nicer, more refined case. And while we hesitate to say it, there's definitely a reason the word perfect comes up so often in reviews of the Tiki. Just look at it. The amount of clearance between the components is about as small as it can get while still having paths for air. Even the cables have to be routed just right to not cause issues. And while it is upgradable, you'll want to keep the CPU cooler as it's one of the few that will fit, and same goes for the GPU. It can only fit a 2-slot card, which is why they use NVIDIA's Founders Editions. Another thing to note when digging into it is despite the case size, the power supply is internal. In our case, a 1200 watt Silverstone small form factor PSU, and there's even space for a customized nameplate. The body is only 4 inches wide, 13 inches tall, and 13.6 inches deep, making it one of the smallest Mini-ITX PCs with probably the best performance capability. And for how small it is, it's deceivingly heavy, which isn't helped by the 5-pound solid aluminum base to prevent it from getting tipped over, which works very well, but does impede its portability. And while the base is removable, there's a reason it exists, and 99% of the time you'll want to leave it on. But for those of you who need more portability, Falcon Northwest does have the frag box as a better option for you. And it's not just the exceptional build quality and finishes though. The out-of-box experience is great too. Where some pre-builts are just put together and sent off, Falcon Northwest takes the time to properly configure them so you can just focus on enjoying the computer. It really makes all the difference, as almost every pre-built has at least some little quirk, whether that be drivers or integrated software issues, not having Expo enabled, or countless other little things. This just doesn't. You just plug it in and it works. And as somebody who regularly builds and reviews computers, it makes me question what entity they made a deal with to not have any bugs, at least in all of the computers that we've tested. And while normally we don't focus too much on the company behind the product, there is an exception here, as Falcon Northwest's service and reputation is a big selling point. They've been making elite computers since 1992, winning many awards over the years, with the Tiki specifically somewhat recently being named Digital Trend's best mini gaming PC and PC Mag's best high-end gaming PC, among others. And in addition to the great warranties, they also include lifetime technical support. So it's no wonder this is the prime choice a lot of companies and celebrities, including NVIDIA, Intel, and Valve, who have all showcased it at CES previously. And then you also get a separate little box, which includes a coffee mug and coffee and a nice little kit for all of your drivers or the extra power supply cables. But let's get back to enjoying the PC and talk performance. As we said before, our Tiki has a 9800X3D, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and a 5080, which comes in at just over $5,000. So your parts and performance may vary, but here's what we got in our testing. Firstly, in 1440p ultra settings, the 3 most demanding games, Black Myth Wukong got 65 FPS, Monster Hunter Wilds got 94 FPS, and Cyberpunk 96 FPS, which with a 5080 isn't anything that crazy, but what is impressive was, again, the cooling capability, keeping the CPU at 65C, 88C, and 80C, and the GPU at 62C, 57C, and 60 Celsius, respectively, in each of those games. Even in 4K, it pushed out 42 FPS for the Monkey games, 63 in Monster Hunter, and 43 in Cyberpunk, and the temps stayed about the same and never experienced any form of thermal throttling. For the average performance, it got 98 FPS with 66 FPS 1% and 50 FPS 0.1% lows in 4K Ultra, 144 average with 93 1% and 67.1% lows in 4K Ultra with quality upscaling, 161 average and 102 1% and 74.1% lows in 1440 Ultra, and got an overall average of 124 FPS average with 82 FPS 1% and 60 FPS 0.1% lows. And to put it into perspective, all of those numbers, the Tiki got 2% better performance on average compared to when we originally tested our Founders Edition 5080. Granted, our test bench used an Intel 285K instead of the Tiki's 9800X 3D, but still, the fact that this tiny case has the same capabilities as our giant 12-fan dual-chamber one makes how big most cases are just feel silly. So, while it does cost an arm and a leg, and maybe throw in a kidney too if you want the Pro 6000, you're paying for convenience, and that's exactly what you're getting. As close to a flawless experience as you can get. Plenty of customization, including the most powerful PC hardware out there, a sleek, meticulously designed small form factor case that's also one of the smallest, great customer support and warranty, and it's hard to find anything bad to say about it. Again, besides how much you have to pay.